Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6.5 Keys. Chapter 13. Nancy reminded Radek not to tell anyone that she was a detective, and she headed back to Operat Computers. Elka was finished with Nancy's phone. "Your phone is free of viruses and safe to use again," Elka said. "What were you trying to download anyway?" "A DEGAS database entry from an international crime-fighting agency," Nancy said. "It's related to the theft of Adela Cherna's necklace, which is top secret, so don't tell anyone." "I won't," Elka said. "What do you normally use for protection?" "Oh, all sorts of things," Nancy said. "I've stopped criminals with cherry pies, remote controls, and by driving around in a circle a lot. You name it, I've done it." "I meant virus protection," Elka said. "I'm up to date on all my flu shots," Nancy said. "I meant... Never mind," Elka said. "I was looking for an excuse to mention my taser ring. It's very powerful and can electrocute anyone into unconsciousness in under 2 seconds. "Thank you for that totally irrelevant information which has nothing to do with the conversation and which will never, ever be important to me," Nancy thought. Not wanting to be rude, though, she said something else. "Have you ever accidentally electrocuted yourself when scratching your butt?" "Why would you ask such a thing?" Elka asked, offended. "That means yes," Nancy thought. "So can I use my phone now? Because I've got to write a really angry email to a Mr. Frank Hardy. I can't believe his secret agent friend sent me a virus. If I ever see him again, he's getting a slap to the face. Or I could teach you how to protect your phone in the future with a little game called Cyberblock," Elka said. "You want to move your tile all over the board to collect pieces of data." "How does this help me keep viruses out of my phone?" Nancy asked. "This is just a demonstration," Elka said. "It's fun, like a puzzle." "You're not trying to trick me into doing your homework, are you?" Nancy asked. "Because that happens to me a lot." Elka launched into a long explanation for how she manages to run a computer store by herself at all hours of the day while still managing to obtain a degree in cybersecurity. Nancy didn't understand what Elka was saying at all, but she didn't want to admit it, so she just nodded and worked on the Cyberblock puzzle. It was one of those puzzles where you had to reach the goal in a limited number of moves. Nancy quickly discovered the puzzle was much easier if she pretended most of her moves didn't count towards the total. "Hey, are you cheating?" Elka asked. "No, I'm thinking outside the box, just like a computer programmer," Nancy said. She was spared further explanation when her phone rang. "Let me put this secret agent on speakerphone so everyone in the store can hear this conversation," Nancy said. "Hey, Agent Zane, what's going on?" "I called to make sure you got my email," Zane said. "Did you open the file?" "Not yet," Nancy said. "My phone was being weird, so I had my new best friend check it out. She's a security expert." "You're too kind," Elka said. Nancy opened the email again. This time, the file downloaded and opened perfectly. "Got it open now," Nancy said. "What am I looking for, exactly?" "The DEGAS file tracks the location history of the gems and necklace," Zane said. "Pay close attention to the timestamp entries. They record when the necklace changed custody." "There is nothing in the file that looks like that." "What am I looking for, exactly?" "The DEGAS file tracks the location history of the gems and necklace," Zane said. "Pay close attention to the timestamp entries. They record when the necklace changed custody." "There's nothing in the file that looks like that," Nancy said. "Mine is just a detailed description of what the necklace looks like." "Check the other pages," Zane suggested. "Okay. Next page is a description of Adam Sikora's diamond ring that Hans appraised, then Anita's chain necklace, and that's it," Nancy said. "Most of this file has nothing to do with Adela's necklace." "Are you sure?" Zane asked, "because I'm seeing 2 logs from Zloty Jewelers and 3 from Second Shine." "Well, I've got none of that," Nancy complained. "Great, I go through all this trouble to get the file and it's the wrong one. This is even worse than Radek's puppet show," Nancy said. "Ouch," Elka said. I will attempt to resend the file, Zane said. Thanks, Nancy said. Yeah, you might have noticed that Zane's description of the file bears no resemblance to the actual file Nancy gets. That's kind of annoying. Chapter 14. Nancy thanked Elka for her hard work, then ran away before Elka could hand her a bill. As she walked through the courtyard gate, Nancy checked her task list. There was a new item on it. Further investigate the Marionette Theater, then ask everyone in the city about Residente. Nancy scratched her head. Did someone write that as a joke? Why would she waste a bunch of time on puppet stuff again? There was a mystery to solve. Nancy stopped at Vladena's on her way back to the cafe. Hey, Vladena, I got the paperwork you filled out for Adela's necklace, Nancy said. Vladena sighed. That is not my paperwork. That is the monstrosity of an online system. My paperwork is in the safe. Oh, Nancy said. Can I see it? You? Please, Vladena said. No one could crack my safe. I dare you to try. Well, I did steal the Zatere sapphire when I was in Venice, but I left my hammer and dynamite at home, Nancy said. I could probably crack your safe without them, though. It looks like you made the amateur sleuth mistake of writing the combination on the outside of the safe. Indeed, Vladena had done so. She left pictures above the lock, a sun, a circle, a half-moon, and another circle. That's a code, Vladena said. The math is quite complex, involving many steps that must be taken in a specific order. Nancy spent a few moments typing on her phone. After a brief wait, she triumphantly said, Ha! It's 5457! Nancy punched in the code and the safe popped open. What? How did you do that? Vladena asked. I asked my friend Professor Hotchkiss, Nancy said. She's sort of an expert on Egyptian hieroglyphics. These are not hieroglyphics, Vladena protested. Whatever they are, they're not good enough to protect your safe, Nancy said. Speaking of which, did you know lots of people had safes in the year 1930? It's true. Nancy took Vladena's appraisal log out of the safe and compared it to the appraisal log on DEGAS. Although they had different description sections, they were pretty much the same. Whoa! Nancy said. The dates don't match. One says Sunday the 5th, while the other says Thursday the 3rd. Nancy spun around in a circle so she could dramatically point at Vladena. And that's impossible, because today is a Tuesday. I didn't inspect the necklace today, Vladena said sullenly. So you admit this appraisal log is a fake, Nancy said. I don't know why the DEGAS version of the log is wrong, Vladena said, but I assure you that no one could have tampered with my copy of the log. No one except Oskar. I left him alone in the store with the necklace for a few minutes while I helped a customer. You trust him with your valuable merchandise? Nancy asked. That's so romantic. I would not say that, Vladena said. He would have to be the world's most foolish thief to think he could steal jewels from me when I was in the middle of appraising them. Maybe he's a fool in love with you, Nancy said. You should ask him out on a date. The only fool here is you, Vladena said sourly. Chapter 15. Agent Zane called Nancy. I sent you the file again, he said. Great, Nancy said. Although privately, she didn't care. She was so done with examining DEGAS files. Anything coming up in your investigation that you can tell me about? Actually, yes, Zane said. Black market chatter says there's a major score coming up. With the numbers they're throwing around, it can only be the crown jewels. Someone wants to steal the crown jewels? Nancy asked. But Radek told me you need 6.5 keys to do that. There's more, Zane said. They've added biometric security to their system. You need a retina scan from one of the 7 key holders. Gee, that sounds complicated, Nancy said. If I was a thief, I'd wait for the jewels to go on display before stealing them. Where would you even find one of the key holders? The Dean of St. Vitus is a key holder, Vladena said. Nancy blinked. She had forgotten Vladena was even in the room. Who? Father Leo Sokol, Vladena said. His office is connected to the museum. I heard he's leaving on vacation today. So if he was kidnapped, nobody would notice he's missing, Zane said. Exactly, Vladena said. Who am I speaking to? Zane asked. One of your associates? This is Vladena Zlati, one of the main suspects in the necklace theft case, Nancy said. You put me on speakerphone in front of a suspect? Zane asked. I always have my phone on speaker mode, Nancy said. I don't know how to turn it off. George showed me once, but I forgot. Perhaps we should communicate by email from now on, Zane said. Nancy didn't think much of this idea. Zane's first email had a virus, and his second one had an incorrect file. I think text messages might be better, Nancy said. Fine by me, Zane said. Let me know what happens with Leo. But I'm not, Nancy started to say. It was too late. Zane had already hung up. Ugh, Nancy complained. First puppets, then phone security. Now I've got to check in on this Leo guy? I swear, I've been given so many different tasks. It's like people are trying to prevent me from solving the necklace mystery. Perhaps this Agent Zane is the thief, and he's distracting you on purpose, Vladena said with a smirk. Nancy thought about it. Maybe. Nancy thanked the ungrateful Vladena, and she made her way to the museum, where Oskar was standing in place, looking bored. Nancy went up the large staircase in the back and opened the large doors without meeting any resistance. Looks like Oskar was right. The back entrance to the museum is kept unlocked at all times, Nancy thought. It'd be fairly easy for a thief to sneak in through here. They should put up a "Do Not Rob Museum" sign. Nancy went down the hallway, which led to a hallway, which led to a hallway. She was about to say something sarcastic about hallways when she noticed an open door next to a candle display. Love is an open door, Nancy said happily as she entered the room. It was a small waiting room. A sign on the desk said the secretary was gone on a coffee break. Nancy thought about messing with the secretary's computer. A screensaver with a silly message on it seemed like an appropriate prank, but she quickly spied a door labeled Dean of St. Vitus Cathedral. Nancy wasn't sure who Dean was, but she quickly entered the forbidden office. 2 seconds later, the door closed behind her, and she heard two men arguing. Nancy wondered how she hadn't seen the men earlier if they were that close behind her the whole time. I am here to meet with the Dean, the one man said. Nancy identified his voice as Oscar's. We need to discuss the security for the upcoming Crown Jewels exhibition. Oh, I'm sorry, but the Dean has already left on his trip, the other voice said. Nancy guessed he was the coffee-loving secretary. And I'm afraid he won't be getting back until after the exhibit has opened. By then it will be too late, Oskar said. I'm sorry, but the Dean's schedule is very tight, and he doesn't always have time to attend to, shall we say, more minor details. This is utterly ridiculous, Oskar said. I'm the director of the Gems exhibit, and there have been threats made against the safety of the Crown Jewels. Why do you keep preventing me from providing adequate security? The secretary took a long sip of coffee. The Dean is responsible for security, not you, he said. I fail to see how you should be connected to our plans in any way. The gems are being placed in my museum. It is so hard to do, like two different British people talking to each other. I'm sorry, this is rough. The gems are being placed in my museum, Oskar said. I don't want a repeat of the gem theft of 20 years ago. Yes, it would be a dreadful shame if your shoddy museum was robbed yet again, the secretary said. Perhaps you should consider investing in better security. You won't let me, Oskar said, fuming. When the Dean returns, I demand to meet with him instantly. If the crown jewels are harmed in any way, I will make sure that the blame falls upon you. There was a loud slamming of a door after this. Nancy figured Oskar had stormed out of the office. You'll never get to meet with the Dean, the secretary said in a rude voice. "That's what you get for stealing my parking spot last week, you jerk!" Author's note: that is obviously the real reason why the secretary was so mean to Oskar.